Yeah, I hadn't broadcasted baseball in many years, probably since college, because in 2016, 17, when I was a grad assistant, I was on the way to do that, but I didn't get a chance to do that. And so, fast forward 2024, April, I'm heading to Dietrich versus Sisney. And Dietrich's a small town just outside of Effingham, over in central Illinois, and it takes about 2 hours to get there. And so I'm driving 2 hours and back for a game that's only going to pay me $50. But it was something that I needed and something that I always wanted to do was just call games, and it's definitely got me feeling like I'm back to it. But I was originally scheduled to do more games. One of them got rained out, so I ended up doing just the 4 games. So I got $200 out of it, and just broadcasting is just so much fun. I mean, it makes you feel like a kid, like you're watching baseball again. You know.
Was this the one where you were like, you had posted a video or a picture of yourself in the box behind the diamond, like
Yeah.
doing everything?
Yeah. I had my scorecard ready. I had the headphones ready and everything, and just did my notes as best I could. I even made a Max Preps account so that I could. And the trick is that, or at least I think it's a trick, because apparently for Max Preps, if you're like a parent or a fan or whatever, you have to subscribe. There's a subscription.
Yeah.
I put myself down as media because, I mean, technically I am media.
Yeah.
I got all the stats for free. And, like, I got access to, like, the recaps and all that stuff, all because I said I was media, which I was. But, if you want to make a Max Preps account, call yourself a media account or something, and maybe you'll get free stats. But I use that to just do my research on these players. And, we're not talking about, a lot of these kids don't go to college baseball or anything like that. They're just kids that, they're just having fun still. It's like when you play high school football. You play football since when you were a kid in Pop Warner or whatever, and you spend like the next 12, 14 years playing football. Same thing with baseball. If you're just an average player just wanting to play,
Is that same kind of ethos drive both the broadcaster side and kind of the reporter news anchor side of your interest in just people's stories?
I think the stories are what make the broadcast. I think it's the people that make the broadcasts, because we can delve into the stats all we want. We can look into who's the best home run hitter or the best run producer or whatever, the guy who steals the most bases or whoever. But ultimately, it's like who's got the best story. And I think that the stories are stories over stats. I think that's my belief in sports. And I know we are heavy with stats today, especially with baseball fans fighting over whether WAR should be considered, as a statistical tool to measure a major league player or not, because the old heads will say, well, look at home runs and RBIs. Well, New Age is like, well, WAR, measures like how many wins, that they impact on a team, and so you can tell that by this one player. It's got its plus and minuses, and we don't really get to that like complicated in high school. But just researching numbers and finding out like the stories. I didn't do enough games like in this this set of broadcasts that I did to like really come up with narratives and stories. It was just mostly to just get my feet wet and get back into the rhythm of baseball broadcasting. And by the time I did my last game at the end of April, I think it was like April 21st, something like that, I feel like I had finally got a rhythm down. And it's all due to preparation. It's all about preparation in that business.
Stories over stats, y'all. That's where we're at on the return of the WTF Carbondale podcast, where the story is Danny Valle's and the stat is that we're at episode 115 on the podcast, where we talk to interesting people about their interesting lives, and we tie it all back to this little old place we call home, Carbondale, Illinois. Danny Valle, thanks, man.
This might be the worst episode ever because I'm like the least interesting person you're ever going to meet. I swear.
We're going to find that out over the next 45 minutes to an hour or so.
Yeah.
So all right. So how did you land in Carbondale to begin with?
Well, it was August 2011. Well, I guess even further behind that, when I first went to orientation at SIU that summer. It was my sister and another family friend of ours that went. So there's three of us in a car going to Carbondale to visit the campus. I got to see the campus, very beautiful campus, and really it was the only campus I visited. Because like my other choice, and you're gonna laugh at this, like one of the big dream school for me was Syracuse, because all the greats go there. Like Bob Costas went there. You know, a lot of great broadcasters graduated from that program, and I wanted to be, you know, in that program. Well, it costs a lot to go there, and Syracuse is very far away. So I wanted to kind of stay in the region. And so I did some research, and I found Michigan State was actually a very good broadcast school, and so I actually, you know, applied to Michigan State. I didn't have the grades to do it. I kind of effed up those last couple of years of high school, not enough to where SIU said don't come in. And
we would never.
Yeah, exactly. and so like and the story like of how I got into SIU was very entertaining too, because like I am like the biggest procrastinator on earth, and that is so unbecoming of like someone in my position who's a reporter.
But that works though, because it makes you function under a deadline all of the time.
It makes me more fluid, I guess. You know, it makes me like water, right? You know, like Bruce Lee said, be like water. You know, but like how I got to SIU, like from a young age, like I was pushed, like, you know, stay in school, you know, do your homework, you know, you'll go to college, get a better career, because I had parents that, you know, did, you know, labor jobs. Like my dad was a roofer. My mom worked in factories on and off. And so like I was, you know, tabbed, you know, be the first and, you know, to graduate college, you know, to go. And so like, you know, I took it seriously and I didn't. I did my due diligence, and then I did it at the last minute, and my counselor was kind of on my ass. And, you know, I got into school last minute, but it was only because like a representative from SIU was in Chicago, and I guess he was going to have my transcript in hand, going to Curie, my high school, go Condors, go to Curie, grab the transcript, and he's on his way back down to Carbondale to go bring it back to the university. That way I can go into college. And that guy was I can't remember his name to save my life, but
what school? What did you go to J school here? Is that what your focus was, journalism?
Yeah. It was sports broadcasting.
Okay.
It was electronic journalism was my major, with an emphasis of sports broadcasting. And so
back when it was electronic journalism.
Yeah.
What a great term to show that like middle ground of transition from traditional media to modern media, where you landed on your
electronic journalism. Yeah, it was the weirdest name for why not just say radio TV, you know, like why not call it that? But anyway, so like, you know, I got my transcript in last minute, and I actually ended up I ended up at the dorms over in the West Campus. I stayed at Kellogg Hall, and the dining hall there, Lentz. I go there the first week, and I see this guy there, and he's pouring himself a drink like at the machine, and I recognize his name tag, and it's that guy that brought the transcript in. And I go, "Hey, are you this person?" Is like, "Oh, hey, I'm Danny Valle. I'm that guy that talked to you on the phone." He's like, "Oh yeah, like I got your transcript in time." Like, "Yeah, how's everything?" And you know, so it seemed like people that working at SIU were just like hell bent on like getting students in. Like they were making sure like everybody was getting in. I mean, this guy did not have to like grab my transcript at my high school to do all this, but you know, he just, I guess, wanted to help me out at that point. But I did that freshman year. I did WIDB. You heard of WIDB, of course. It was really just something I did because I wanted to do play-by-play, and it got me a chance to just go to like the SIU games, basketball, football. Man, the media treatment was great back then. Like they fed you, like I heard they don't feed you as much anymore. I haven't been back there in quite a while. I was there for the eclipse, but I mean it was the eclipse, so you had to feed people, you know. Right. But going into the press conferences, sitting in the booths, the broadcast booth. Well, for football, you were in the press row, but you were like in the back row, but like you were still in like an area where like there was a bunch of reporters trying to do their job. And you know, you're over here trying to call the plays, and like sometimes you get excited and you're making this noise, and like you have some of these reporters looking at you like you know, like quiet down. It's just like, well, it's a ball game.
My job's the performance side of this too, on top of the informational side of things.
Yeah,
I got a story to tell, guys. Come on.
Yeah, and so it was kind of like nerve wracking whenever I was broadcasting football because it was one of my least favorite things to broadcast because one, I'm a big baseball fan,
Yeah.
and I still am to this day.
Have you
Football
ever gotten
and
to connect with Pete Peterson while you've been here?
Pete Peterson, I don't think so.
Okay, he's the guy that does like reading baseball and
Oh yeah, I've read his stuff. Yeah. I've read it on what's the weekly Carbondale
it's
paper?
the Carbondale Times.
The Carbondale Times. Yeah. I've read some of his stuff. It's really amazing. And like I haven't met him. I'd love to meet him. I'd love to meet him.
Maybe that's one of your like last before you leave town. Like
Hopefully,
I gotta go find Pete Peterson.
it'll be a scavenger hunt. But football was and other sports were my least favorite just because I didn't watch them.
Yeah.
And football was my least favorite because I was in a basically like hollow room making all this noise in an area where you're expected to be quiet. It's kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
I loved doing volleyball. That was a lot of fun because you were at Davies Gym. I don't know if you've been to Davies Gym.
No,
It's just a small gymnasium, holds like maybe 1,000 people, but man, it gets loud.
Yeah.
It is the smallest, I think, venue in the Missouri Valley Conference for I think any sport. I would say. Excuse me, sorry, I had an energy drink here, and so I liked that. Softball and baseball, baseball was interesting because the Itchy Jones Stadium, what we have now, we didn't have that back in 2011, 2012. We had Abe Martin Field, and it was literally just bleachers behind home plate, and it was a red, like, house-looking thing. It was like a shack. Apparently, like some coaches back in the 80s or the 70s or whatever, I think Itchy Jones himself helped build that shack, that red shack that was at the top of the at the top of the bleachers. That became the press box. And we didn't sit in the press box. We didn't have that kind of royalty. That was Mike Reese's territory. Like, we sat outside the press box, like, in the stairs. So if it was raining, we were screwed. And so anytime there was a chance at raining, we would not do a baseball game because there was no way we had any shelter from that.
Had 2011 had McAndrew Stadium been torn down? In
Yeah.
2011?
We had Saluki Stadium by then.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I can't remember the timeline on all that stuff.
Because when I came to SIU the first time, we parked in the parking lot, which used to be McAndrew Stadium.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah. So that was already done. And dang. What a good. I mean, yay! It's nice to have the new shiny things, but man, just kind of like Davies Gym, like
It's the charm.
McAndrew Stadium was just, that it was just that. It was that stadium. Like, you just felt like, this is where we really get into it.
I'm glad that the Banterra Center, formerly SIU Arena, I'm glad that still
always
mostly.
the arena, but that's okay.
For me, it's always the arena too, but I don't want to get in trouble with Banterra Bank. But the it's still the same. Like, even when you look inside, it's still the same. When you look at like the throwback pictures that Morse Library will throw out back there, it's still the exact same inside. Such a beautiful arena, and it gets really packed loud. I went to the Oklahoma State win a few months ago. Man, that was raucous. I was actually talking to my buddy about that. Like, man, those refs like really tried to steal that one because like we were waiting like I say 10 minutes for like 5 seconds to go by, like the last 5 seconds of the game.
Why did you like? Is the sports thing always been a part of your life? Is it like a familial thing? Did you just pick it up on your own? Like, this is a really this makes your life, man.
I think part of it, I think a lot of it really goes to my dad. When I was a kid, I used to watch, I still do watch a lot of TV. I work in TV. I am TV. I've evolved into TV. DV is TV. No, that would be a show. That would be a show.
Hey, man, write that down.
We have it on recording right here.
You own that. That's your
No, like, I had parents that worked a lot and sisters that, worked a lot or went to school, whatever.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'd be left with one sibling or one parent, and I would be left with the TV, and, there's a lot of people that, generation raised by TV. I feel like I was one of those people that was raised on TV, and not that my family didn't raise me, they did, but just like, I kind of got my sense into the world by watching TV.
Yeah.
Like, there was something else outside of this apartment or this block that I play with my friends in because, when I was 6 years old, 5 years old, I couldn't walk down the streets or anything like that by myself. Mm-hmm. But anyway, my dad would watch Cubs games on the TV. And anytime I was watching something, because we used to have one TV in the house. It was one of those old school, like, box TVs, like with the, it was brown, made of wood. Yeah. Yeah. It was one of those. And so we had that for the longest time. It was the only TV in the house. Mm-hmm. And so I used to watch a bunch of stuff on there, and my dad, when he would come home from work, he would change it. He's the man of the house, I guess,
Yeah,
breadwinner,
he pays
whatever.
the bills, buddy.
Yeah, and so he would switch on the Cub game if there was a Cub game. I'd get so pissed, and it's like, what the hell? I was watching The Simpsons or Arthur, or whatever was on TV. I was usually watching PBS. It was really all we had before we had cable.
Yeah.
And the Cubs were on WGN. And so he would watch the Cub games a lot. And so I resented that for a few years because I was just like, I don't understand this game. I don't understand why he likes it so much. It's slow, it's boring, And so it wasn't impressionable. And so one day, I remember it was it's actually just celebrated the anniversary. I don't know if you ever heard of Kerry Wood. He was a former Cubs pitcher. His rookie season was 1998. I like to consider that my first year being a Cub fan because when I was a kid, I was flipping through the channels as I usually do one day, and I see a damn Cubs game, and I know it's a Cubs game because of how it looks, how the announcers are sounding, and just by the look of it. But every time this guy, I just remember Wood, 34, and this kid just throwing what looked to be this ball that was disappearing. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. I just remembered that people were so happy and so excited. And I remember the shot of the camera showing the row of Ks going down the screen that just shows that he threw 20 strikeouts. Well, at the time, I think 18 or whatever. Yeah. And that just stood out to me. And I was just like, why are people so excited about this guy? And it turned out it was the 20 strikeout game that I had seen. And I didn't have any clue. I just stumbled upon it. I just remembered the Ks. And I just remembered that excitement. And it was really fun. And I remember my dad came home and I told him, I was like, what's the K's mean? Like, what does that mean? And he sat down and explained to me that was a strikeout, like a ponche. They call it in Spanish, un ponche. And, tuvo 20 ponches. And, tell me it was a record. And I was just like, okay, I didn't know that meant anything, And, but it was that piece of excitement that kind of sticks with me that I didn't know at the time. But then when I see it repeated on, freaking Instagram or X or whatever, it brings me back to that moment. And I kind of celebrate that as being when I first became a Cub fan.
That's a warm and fuzzy, buddy. That's a good one.
No, it's been part of my life. It's been part of my life for a long time, and I didn't really fully embrace baseball until 2003. If you're a baseball person, that was when the Cubs got very close to going to the World Series. For those that were born in 2010 and after who lived in the generation where the Cubs are the world champions, 2016, there was a time when we almost went to the World Series. That was 2003, and it was Game 6, and the Bartman ball. You probably heard of the Bartman ball or not.
The guy that caught the ball and then Chicago hates him forever.
Yeah, and it was just the biggest excuse not to hate your team was to blame this guy that was just enjoying the game. It was the stupidest thing. But me as a young kid,
ruined that dude's life.
Yeah, they sent him into hiding. I mean, that dude got death threats. At the time, when you're a kid, it's like, well, it was Steve Bartman's fault. It was Steve Bartman's fault. I didn't know any better. Yeah. I was just mad that my team. I was just mad that my team didn't win. And then there was still the Game 7, and then we couldn't do that. That's when I fully when I cried after the Cubs lost in Game 7 of 2003. That's when I knew I was a Cub fan.
Hey man, there's no crying in baseball.
There's a lot of crying in baseball. I don't care what Tom Hanks says in A League of Their Own. It's a great movie, by the way. You've seen it, have you?
Oh yeah, I'm not super pop culture-y. For a guy that's in the space that I'm in with media, you'd think I consume a lot more of it than I do. But the reality is, I got more ideas floating around in my head about what I want to make versus watching what somebody else has done.
Exactly. Hey, that's a good thing too. I just you consume media and that you use it as inspiration.
Yep.
Well,
and we're always building, right? This is a tough space to be in a digital age where it's very difficult, even if to trace source of media and all these other things, right? Where we still have to recognize that much of what exists now exists because we're constantly building on the creation of others, right? And that formats and fundamentals of developing media and the stories that come with it, harken back to just heck, ancient humanity being like, hey, we have the verbal storytelling that we pass down, or we have cave paintings and stuff like that are rudimentary pictorials. And the reality is, right, you can trace from where we are now and the way that we consume and manage media in this way, all the way back to the way that we first started communicating as humans. And in the middle of that, just in the past 120 years has come along with broadcast and radio and then television and so on and so forth. And it's just like, whoa. And now, I always tell folks, like, our big thing as a company and as just kind of like our approach is that this newfangled social media, internet media like thing that we've all become adept to in the past decade that I kind of grew up in the early 2000s to now.
Yeah.
It's like, apply the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Apply the fundamentals.
I mean, it's the same mannequin, you just dress it up differently. Yeah. That's kind of how you're taught. That's how you're fluid too. I mean, the basics don't change. There's always, in any story, there's a beginning, middle, end.
Yeah.
It's just how you get there, and that's the trick, really, and how people want to kind of go there, I guess.
Do you feel like you started learning the world of media at the right time, like the point of transition from traditional to new media as we would see it in the modern era? Do you feel like you landed on that exact right time in space to be like, oh, I got a hand in both right now?
Well, I think, at my time at SIU, I mean, we were still being taught with like those big, huge, like, seemed like 30-pound cameras.
Yeah.
And they're still teaching some of the kids today with that. And it's just, a lot of the equipment like that is becoming obsolete so fast.
Yeah.
And, as simple as the small, Lumix camera that you're using right now,
absolutely.
It can do the job just as well. And it's cheaper and it's smaller and it's more. I think that we're at a point where I don't think it's. I think maybe, and maybe I'm wrong because I'm not an educator, but maybe the curriculum needs to be how to tell stories again and not the equipment we should use, because too many times we think of stories as just being there, showing what happened and leaving. But, we want to get the human element. And I think, and that's something that, I had some good professors at SIU, and then there were some that were not very good. There was one that quit mid-year, RT300.
Which is out.
Yeah, just like literally did like maybe a month or two and then gone.
Yeah.
It's some family issue. But it's not to say that they're not good professors there, but I think for me, I think the new journalists coming in need to know like basics of storytelling fundamental.
Yeah.
Be taught more of that, because like the technology, I think even with TikTok you can be a journalist, and I hate to say that because you open up the floodgate for a lot of possibility there.
Well, it is the issue of what seed are you planting and what plant are you reaping on the other side of this, and it's put bad in, get bad out, put good in, and you still got to fight against the bad the whole way through, just for deliverable, because the old adage again, fundamentals here, a lie is around the world before the truth gets up and puts its pants on in the morning.
I remember that one. Or tie its shoes or whatever it's doing, do its laundry, whatever.
But I mean, you're absolutely right. Just the reality that a cell phone camera now is better than most high-end cameras just 15 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And that you're always going to know how to press the button to record. The question is, do you know all the other things that go into it that actually make compelling media on the other side?
Isn't TikTok so interesting?
I am blown away by it. On one end, it's incredible accuracy with the way that it feeds people exactly what they want to consume. But the other side of it to me is just how poorly competitors of the app have tried to clone the functionality and made something far, far worse. I do not see the functionality of Facebook Reels as Instagram maybe a little bit better, but Facebook specifically, the way that it feeds content is nothing like the way that TikTok feeds content.
And I never really paid attention to like how it feeds content like that.
No, it's bad. I mean, I'm thinking right now of just how like low quality the content is in my Facebook Reels feed, and I'm just like, this is broken. I mean, I just 2 days ago I went and I deleted every one of my advertising interests, hoping that I could change something about the relevancy of the material that I was seeing, right?
Yeah.
And it just wouldn't do it. TikTok, I could probably, and again, I'm not a huge TikTok user. But if I went in, I gave it the time and the attention that I do Facebook, that I would see much more relevant content coming back to me. At least that's how I feel.
I just think it's so interesting that like it sheds light on a lot of like BS that goes on in places where we wouldn't really see, you know, things like that on the news or anything. Because there's only so much time in news to tell like the top stories of the day. And even then it's like, who says these are the top stories of the day? I mean, it's producers that are, pretty much choosing for thousands of people, like what the top stories are and what people are talking about. And that's really what the point of the top story is like, what are people talking about? A lot of it's been weather recently. Those storms you got last week, and the Aurora Borealis, the Northern
3 days
Lights.
straight of Aurora Borealis, baby.
Can you believe I didn't get to see it once?
I tried. I came back into town Friday night after doing a show in Paducah. Didn't see it. Like
we're losers officially,
dude. I was super upset.
I was bummed, man.
I was like, it's right here. Where is it?
I know.
Why are there so many posts around me that say, "Oh my gosh, the Aurora Borealis"? And I'm going, where?
I'm thinking this is photoshopped. Hell no. I'm like, no, I didn't get to see it. I was chasing those things in northern Illinois the other night. I was upset. I had no patience for nature. I have more patience for a 4-hour baseball game than I do the Aurora Borealis. And
the once in a lifetime, like the only chance I'm gonna get to see.
Well, I mean, maybe if I go up north to North Michigan and the time is right, maybe I could see them up there.
Yeah.
And I've heard the UP is much different than the rest of Michigan, like mid Michigan where I'm going, and so I'm interested to see what that's like up there.
Yeah, no, that'll be cool. That'll be cool. I think, what's nice is it sounds like it's the right move for it.
Yeah, I mean, like I've been in Carbondale for 13 years, and I loved every year of it. I had the highest of highs, lowest of lows, dude. I think the people are what make Carbondale.
Yeah.
People like yourself.
Don't
Oh yeah. No, you've done a lot of good things, Nathan, and you're continuing to do good things, and you're showing off that there are a lot of talented people here, and not just Carbondale, but in Southern Illinois. Living here for 13 years, I didn't expect to live here 13 years, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I graduated, and then I was working for this company called Weed Man. I don't know if you ever heard of Weed Man.
It was always the fun joke, right? You see the Weed Man driving around, you're like, Weed Man, yeah!
I was wearing this yellow vest, and it just said Weed Man on there, and, I had, I never got the jokes, but the coworkers got the jokes, like, oh, yeah, 420, Weed Man, yo, where's the bag? No,
you straight-laced Danny Valle over here, just like, I don't understand, guys.
What are you talking about?
What?
No. And I was a door knocker. I was basically just knocking doors, asking people if they want to sign up for an estimate. Every signature I got was $1 more on my paycheck, and I made like base salary like $10.25, something like that. So I didn't make much, but it was enough because I was splitting a studio apartment with one of my best friends, Sean, and he loves this page, by the way.
Thank you. Hi, John.
Or Sean, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
And it's just it's like Carbondale has been really good to me for 13 years, and I think there's still a lot that I haven't explored here, but I wish I had more time to do it. It worked as a door knocker 2015. Lost my job like the most stupidest way possible. It was. You know what? I'll make peace with it now, I guess, because a lot of my friends make fun of me for it. And so, one day I was door knocking in this neighborhood, and I think it was in Redbud or somewhere
Goodness
far away.
gracious, you were far flung from this.
We were doing shifts where some in weekdays we would go into like Marion, Heron, Harrisburg, like local towns around here, about 30 minutes away. On the weekends, that's where we earned most of our hours, and I wanted weekends. We would go to faraway towns like Redbud or Carmi, whatever. Carmi sucked, man. We didn't get anything in Carmi one day, but Redbud and Steelville, like I remember, I knocked on a door there, and I did my spiel or whatever. I got the phone number and the contact information, and I was good to go. And so I left, and I wanted to stop to go to the bathroom, and the boss at the time was like, "Well, we got to get these last houses. Like, if you can hold on to it, Like, no, I can't. And then I got this idea. I was like, you know what? I forgot this lady's phone number. Let me go back and grab it. He's like, all right, cool. And so I go back to this lady's house. I knock on the house, and she sees me again. I was like, oh, hello. I was like, hello, miss. Actually, I forgot your phone number. Can I have that, please? And she goes, yeah, sure. And she gives me the phone number. And I said, and I know this is really awkward, but can I use your restroom? And you could say no if you want to. Like, I was just giving her the eye. And she's like, no, I don't think so. It's okay. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. And so I walked away. Didn't think anything of it. I just thought that was the weirdest thing to ask. But you know what? I'm not doing anything. I'm just knocking on doors, doing my
bathroom, man. It is what it is.
Yeah, nature calls. And my boss was being a jerk. And so no bathroom. And so I had to hold it. God, it was painful. And so after I relieved myself, we got back in the car, started heading to Carbondale back. The driver, who's the manager, he gets a phone call from the head guy. Says he gets a phone call from this lady saying like somebody asked to use the bathroom, and so he's like, hey, did one of you guys ask to use the bathroom at someone's house? And I was like, yeah, that was me. Why? Well, Matt, the guy who was in charge, like Matt just called and he said that that you're fired, basically. And I was like, for what? For asking to use someone's bathroom? He's like, yeah, I mean, that's, that's, he just thinks it's kind of unprofessional and like, a little
that
creepy.
Sounds like a labor violation of some kind.
I mean, I was pissed and I was just like, whatever, I gave the middle finger. I stole a vest. Yeah. I actually gave that vest away today, so I don't have it anymore. So I lost that trinket of my Carbondale past. And so after Weedman was done, I still had some money left over where I was still affording stuff. And then a couple months later, I got the job at News 3 where I became an AP, an associate producer. I was basically doing the grunt work. And I was positioning cameras, moving cameras around. I was editing video, not scripts, but just editing video, all that stuff. And it was a very simple time, honestly. And it was back when camera people existed still. It was when the newsroom was a lot smaller.
Well, dude, and you got to work for Bonnie and Steve in the last bit of the glory days.
Yeah, that's what I've told.
You got to work around some like true dyed-in-the-wool broadcasters, man.
Dude, and they're some of the nicest people I've ever met. And I remember the first time I ever interacted with Steve Wheeler, who is our longtime general manager. I was signing in my computer and into the computer, and this guy just pops up out of the corner. He's just this guy with glasses, and he's got a mug with coffee in it. And he goes, "Hey, good morning, Danny. How you doing?" I was like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" "Oh, I'm doing fine." And he just walks away, and I'm just like, "Who in the hell is that?" And I was like, I knew that was like a guy of importance because I don't see him around. I felt like he was like a boss or something, maybe like a GM or something. And then so Mike Snuffer, who was the news director at the time, he goes up to me. He goes, "You know who that was, right?" And I was like, "Oh, was that like the GM or something?" He's like, "Yeah, that's Steve Wheeler. He's our GM." And I was like, he knew my name. I never met him before. And he's like, "Yeah, he knows everybody's names." Like, he was just one of those guys that, like, no matter how low you are on the totem pole, he took the time to learn your name and to know who you were. Well, I never got that far with him, but and he was also the reason why I'm an anchor today. It was when I was a morning producer. So my first stint was as an AP. Then I went to SIU for grad assistantship. After that fell through, I went back to WSIL, this time in a different role. I was a morning producer. Mm-hmm. So I was doing Monday through Fridays from 11 p.m. to 7, 8 a.m., mm-hmm. The overnight shift. And so I was producing the morning show for over a year. And I remember one day we were getting our new video system implemented, and one of our guys, Jim Sweeney, he was running the director spot, and he was like, "Hey, so like, I think this runs good, like, but we just need like a, an anchor there to like, just kind of have it like an actual, newscast." I had a few minutes left in my shift. I had to make up some hours. I was like, "Hey, you know what? Can I just be your dummy?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I mic'd up, and because the last time I had anchored was in college. I was doing River Region, and
so you got to do River Region in college. That's pretty cool. We'll come back to that.
yeah, River Region, and so it was the first time I had anchored in like a few years, and it was just playing around. So I'm just scrolling through the prompter, and I'm just reading, and from another coworker that told me. Steve Wheeler was walking past the control room, and he sees me anchoring, hears me anchoring. He comes back and is just watching, and then just, kind of watching the video roll, hearing me read, walks away, goes into Snuffer's office, and he goes, "You need to get him on air." And so in the next few weeks, Snuffer starts asking me, what my on-air experiences is, and I tell him. Next thing you know, I do like a morning show segment about the Simpsons donuts. It was funny. Then I did a live shot outside Busch Stadium with Dave Davis and one of our other photographers, Joe. And so we did live shots out there, and I learned how to do live shots from Dave Davis.
Yeah.
He just says make it simple and just make it engaging. Like just do your research. Find the things that'll make you stick out. And my thing was I love baseball, and I told Snuffer that. And so he wanted us to do live coverage outside Busch. I did my research. Like they were playing the Diamondbacks that weekend, and I did my thing, and I felt comfortable up there. And so Snuffer was comfortable enough to ask me if I wanted to be the weekend morning news anchor. And so I did that. And so, yeah, I went from morning producer to weekend anchor. Nobody does that.
Yeah, that's a heck of a jump, man.
That is a
like,
trampoline.
People who don't understand, like, the news business don't understand, like, how big of a move that is.
That's why I consider myself very lucky.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a jump from morning show producer to weekend show anchor in the mornings. So basically I had to produce my own show, which is, I had to get the stories set and write them and do my own stuff. Back then I had people that still edited for me and ran my cameras. It was still with staff,
When we had staff.
Yeah. And so I did that for, about a couple of years, I think till about 2023, and then in 2023 I moved to the evenings on the weekends, and then I evolved into a one-man band. Just started doing it all, just a lot of learning in the mornings.
So before you were out in the field reporting, you were behind the anchor desk.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Producer to anchoring and then reporting. I didn't become a reporter till like May 2019. And my first stories were those big floods in Southern Illinois at that time. Like I went to McClure. It's a town of like maybe 500 people, and like people were kayaking across the street because it was so deep. Because like there was a street that went like down like on a slope. It was completely filled, and people were kayaking around the corner. It was like one of my first live shots.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and one of my favorite stories, though, was when me and our photographer, he's now the assignment editor, Andy Schaffstall, we were both in the car together, and I was assigned to do a different story, but we were here on the scanner follow-up from the night before. This guy had fought a cop and allegedly stabbed the cop or whatever. I think it was in Ziegler or something. It was in Franklin County. A lot of crazy shit happens in Franklin County. And so, like, this guy apparently, does the thing, and he gets on an ATV and, like, gets away, or in a car and then finds an ATV, gets away. And he's gone for the night. Like, he disappears into the night. And so the next morning, like, the story was, like, this guy's on the loose who attacked a cop. And so we're just trying to listen for follow-ups. All the reporters are out. I'm just a, young pup, I'm just starting out. And so they hear on the scanner, oh, hey, we have an eye on this person. And so our producer, Bailey, at the time was like, hey, like, go with Andy and go now. And so we went. And we were basically following the chase of the police car chasing the ATV in the back roads of like Franklin County, between Jefferson County, Franklin and Perry County. Actually, it was magnificent because like I felt like we were like cops too, like chasing this guy, And so like, and
Smokey and the Bandit, it's Dukes of Hazzard. It's
dude, and then I had my app, I had my phone on with the scanner on, and we're listening to our like where the updates are, and then we're hearing on the scanner, just as a a notice, we have a News 3 car out here, we have a WSIL car, and so they know that we're following them, and so like we were following around this cornfield. We eventually stop because we don't know where the chase is. Eventually we get down a country road into Perry County. We stop at a bar because we're like, well, let's talk to people. We need to get sound. We need to be like, hey, like there's this guy on the loose. Have you seen anything like this? Or have you seen? You want to get sound for the evening news, anything. So as I'm trying to do that, we hear on the scanner like, oh, like he's knocking on someone's window trying to break in. And so we hop right back in the car. We start speeding that way, and we get to where the house is. And luckily, there's like a road where you can kind of park into the side. Like here's the road here. This is the house, and then here's us. And so we're parked here. I'm crossing the street. I immediately go on Facebook Live. I'm going Facebook Live, and this is the guy that that the police have been chasing, allegedly here. It was like my heart was pounding. Yeah. Like there was so much adrenaline, and like it was like my first bit of action as a reporter, and it's probably like one of my favorite tales, just because of how long it took to get that guy, the context, and then us being out there the moment that he's captured. Yeah. The scariest part was not even then. It was after I did my live shot. We were packing our gear, and we just hear this distant gunshot. And it was like from the house over there, and we're like, all right, let's get our shit and go. Yeah. Like, let's go. We don't want to be here. We don't want to be here like for that. So that was wild.
As your first like run and go get it.
Yeah.
In the field story.
Yeah.
Man, you're the thing. I think it's so you.
Not a lot of those.
Do what?
I said not a lot of those, but that was one of my favorites.
I mean, dude, it sticks out. It's a good one. But you carry yourself in a way that is much more common and approachable than many of your peers, right? Like you have some of the news voice, but you don't have all of the news voice, right? Like
I used to have a lot of news voice. Okay. I used to like when I would voice my packages, and I would have like Danny Valle, News 3. I would do like that sort of speak, and I would fall into it a lot. And one day it just clicked. It was like, just be like a normal be yourself and talk. Yeah. Because like nobody wants to hear like, yeah, we're here in Carbondale live at the scene here on Chestnut and Walnut and Oak or wherever the hell I am. Because you have that. I don't want to be that person. Yeah. I just want to be myself and kind of have my own tone. And doing that, if you tell good stories, the way you deliver it won't matter. Yeah, is what I get at.
Well, and you'd said something earlier. Oh, what were you talking about? Where it was just like we were on the other side of the fundamentals conversation, and oh gosh, what? Because it's something that I've heard you say. I feel like at least 3 or 4 times.
What, stories over stats?
Not stories over stats. It was like I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes ago when we were talking before we jumped like really deep into the some of the TV3 stories there. It may or may not come back to me.
If it does,
about it is I can rewind the tape at a later point in time. Oh, that's what he said. That always sticks out.
Do a part 2. I'll be in Lansing by the time.
WTF Lansing, here we come.
Yeah, part of the WTF podcast network.
Well, and so that's an interesting one because that like the long tail goal of all this WTF Carbondale stuff is to have generated enough source material that like we have these tropes to play off of to actually take those tropes and turn them into like a functional, like true to form television show. I think I've come up with the name as Carbondale is a real place. And then you can kind of interchange, like you can scratch out Carbondale and then you can go to Chicago. Chicago is a real place. You can scratch out Chicago to Lansing.
That'd be
Lansing
good.
Is a real place. It is a, expandable, like place-based, kind of sketch comedy show akin to a Letterkenny type deal where, there's a story, but it's also a sketch. And
yeah.
That's kind of my long term.
I like that though.
That's what building all of this system has been for, like this business and the studio and all this other stuff that I've done is like all been towards like, how do we make media that is representative of a physical experience that you can have in person? Because right now, that's one of the things that I'm like, I hate about our modern media environment is there's too much of a disconnect from the media that you consume and the reality of the experience that media represents.
Yeah.
Right. And there is something in the middle there of consume the media, represent the physical experience, and meet in the middle where the media and the physical experience become one.
I think the thing is that like news has this there's this image of news that they're the parent in the room, that they're the adult in the room.
Yeah.
And I guess the attitude toward news is like it's kind of like boomer news.
Yeah.
There's a lot of spin on certain subjects, or not a lot of subjects are being talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of with like the Israel-Palestine thing going on, just with certain subjects like that. But there's definitely like a blurred line, I think, with how news should be reported versus like how it could be reported, and who decides who it should be reported?
The advertisers.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the other component that like nobody takes account for, is that at the end of the day, like these are businesses, and I love the concept of the non-for-profit model. Right, like what does it take to get small town newspapers back up and going? Well, it takes subscriptions and donations and grants and advertisers and a mix of revenue systems, not just hey, go out and sell column inches and P codes and whatever else.
Well, I think what's missing, the most important thing, is trust.
Yeah.
Because there are too many sources out there, so-called sources,
Yeah.
that will say the thing that, let's say, people want to hear, but they just say it because, well, this is what people want to hear, and this is where the reactions are going to come from, because people are being like, well, hey, I heard it on this Facebook page. Well, where are their sources? Well, they're just saying it to say it. I mean, there's no factual.
I mean, I'm not going to mince words about it, right? Aaron Price, I've been observant of Aaron Price since he entered the media sphere when the kid was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
Right, and it's like, dude, at some point in time, I don't care what your age is, like, you've bought into this industry and this is your career.
Yeah.
And like, when people who have been doing this for a very long time tell you how you should approach credibility, and you just continue to reject that, there's an issue there. Like, people turn to your platform as a source of truth and fact because you produce so much media, but the reality is, it's maybe 70-80% truth and 20 to 30% bullshit. And I'm sorry, but that 20 to 30% bullshit is much heavier than that 70-80% truth, and the negative outcome of that is concern.
Yeah, and Aaron Price is a good kid. Like he's I'm impressed with Aaron Price, to be honest with you. Like,
you can't not be. He's Johnny on the spot.
He goes out and grabs it though, and that's what I think that a lot of Southern Illinoisans really appeal to, is that, well, for one, he's Southern Illinois, and two, he's from here, so he's one of us, and this is a kid we can trust because he asks those type of questions. Like, I've been in press conferences with him, and I was skeptical at first, but he asks some good questions, and he asked he asked Governor J.B. Pritzker a tough question or two, and as far as like the part that's BS, I haven't really like seen too much of the page as far as like what's the BS or not, but I will say is that they get on it really fast, and I think in this day and age, people want that, is to be there not just first but fast, and I think sometimes when we post something that maybe wasn't well thought out because it just sounds very good, and it's going to get the traction no matter what. And you can always retract, and you can always, edit, and the engagements are still going to be there.
Well, I still like another thing that kind of blows me away, and is the hold on. Let me rewind for a second.
Sure.
Because I'm gonna touch on just the one big misinformation.
Also, this is like 11:30, so like we forgave you.
We're way past that. It's
or 12:20.
Yeah, it's like 12:30.
So it's okay to like be tired.
Yeah. So thank you for sticking this out.
Absolutely.
And working with me on.
Well, thank you for the chance.
So this is where we talk about how a core source can find itself, spread around the world as a problematic piece of information. So Dan Proft, Local Government Information Services. You're familiar with all the fake newspapers that are all over Illinois that are like this news, that news, this regional news, blah blah blah. He's got like 21 of these things all over the place. It's all bullshit funded material that the Uline folks fund and blah blah blah. Anyway, so Dan Proft publishes that like 8-point thing about what will happen if the Safety Act passes in Illinois. Somebody takes a picture of what this guy is printed in this newspaper, posts it to the internet as if it is a real thing, right? None of this is credible. None of this is factual. It's just whatever the
speculation.
Whatever the local government information services has decided to wheel up there.
Yeah.
Aaron takes that picture, turns it into a graphic. That graphic, goes on to reach tens of millions of people, and eventually lands itself with critical coverage from St. Louis and Chicago news outlets going, actually, this is a problem. And this is, I remember reporters from St. Louis specifically being like, this is not a news site. This is a blog. And, talking down. I mean, you can't consider yourself credible when you're publishing something that is that much lacking credibility. And there's a difference between willingly going into the misinformation space because it serves what you think your audience wants to consume versus what modern news gets caught up in a lot of time, which is, we reported something incorrectly, we've got to issue a correction. Because of the velocity of communication and content these days, you've got to be fast, like you said. And then when you get something wrong, all of a sudden you're not just fast and making a change. Now you're the enemy because you were wrong at first.
Because we're not reporting facts, we're reporting talking points. Is what it is. And that's the thing is what are people talking about? Well, here's what you can talk about. Here's a talking point. And, it's not necessarily true, but it's more of a what if, So it could be a Marvel series. What if, What if?
What if? So River, you got to start out you got to do the broadcasting activity in college.
Yeah, River Region. I was a reporter and an anchor. I did sports. I was sports director for a year. Nice. There. I did WSIU FM, Sunrise Sports. Many late nights doing that. It was so much fun. WIDB obviously with that, and WSIU TV. So I kind of went in all those three, IDB, SIU, and the TV and radio. So I just kind of wanted to get my feet wet and everywhere because I wanted to have
the Daily Egyptian. Never got on the print.
That's not true.
Oh,
that's not true.
Right,
I wrote a single article for the Daily Egyptian. I remember because my good friend Aaron Graff, he was the sports editor at the time, and they were needing help getting content for the upcoming basketball season, and so. I'm known as a 5-tool player. I can do a lot. Yeah. I never did print because I didn't really want to. Yeah. And so they asked me, hey, can you you interviewed this player for Sports View for River Region. You think you can write up a quick article for our newspaper? I was like, yeah, sure. And so I wrote this. I don't know how many words. I didn't know a newspaper, and so I wrote a few hundred words, I guess, about. I forgot what player it was. I want to say Bola Elanian or something, but it was a player that I don't remember the name. I guess that's how obscure the player was. But I'll have to go back and see. But that was the only time I ever wrote a byline for the Daily Egyptian was for a basketball player for a preview magazine.
I remember Aaron Graff being a pretty solid figure in the reporting world there for the worked at the Daily Egyptian.
Very talented. Yeah. He's very talented. And he knew how to dig a source.
Have you been able to watch folks have you stayed just kind of observing the growth and the progress of all the people around you in your network that you've gotten to know in this industry over the years?
Yeah, a lot of people that wanted to maybe get into sports, maybe they're not doing that or doing something different. I know a guy who works at Yosemite Park. I know some people that are working in Hollywood. There's one guy who's doing game productions for Game Creek Productions. They do Fox Baseball. They did the World Series. So this guy, two of those guys that work there, all from that ESPN3 truck. So there's and then there are a lot of people that I still know that are in the business that are reporters or photographers. Or any of that sort that are still in media. Some of them are directors now, for TV. So there's a kind of a mix of a little bit of everything as far as my classmates in the jobs that they're in, for sure.
People don't realize just how small the world of news and media production is. I mean, sometimes I'm astounded when you think of how many news stations are there in this country. If there's 120 DMAs, give or take. Is that right?
About more than 200. There's more than 200
Okay,
DMAs.
I'm way off.
It's okay.
I'm way off.
They're getting less and less.
Yeah.
More than likely, because like local news is like being gutted, and I feel bad for local news. Like,
well, and you know, this is, you know, we talked about not being too critical of you know, who is now your former employer, but we can talk a little bit about, like, you know, I had really high hopes with Allen Media buying TV3 and being like, oh man, Allen Media is this big, like, you know, like, you know, pie in the sky idea, like
they're the new kid on the block.
Huh?
They're the new kid on the block.
Yeah.
You know, they're brand new.
And I really thought, oh, okay, well, with all this capital and, you know, things like the Weather Channel and all these other, like, bigger projects that they want to, you know, tie into their local news outlets and, like, where their mindset is with production, I was like, this would be super cool to just get this connection from Carbondale through TV3 up into the Allen Media system and figure out what's going on, and then all of a sudden just brick wall, man. Just oops, now we got to restructure. Oops, nothing's making enough money. Oops, like we gotta start firing people at all these stations.
It's like Lucy holding the football for Charlie Brown. If that's not too much of a dated reference anymore.
Yeah.
I heard Snoopy's back in popularity now for some reason.
Things just cycle around.
I guess so. But no, I mean, like, yeah, you know, and my time at 3, I love the people there, and I'm gonna miss them all.
Yeah.
You know, there definitely were some hopes with Allen, just because, like, you know, they were a brand new upstart. They were buying all these stations, like, you know, maybe trying to make an impression on people, and you know, I think for me the thing I'll say is I think that the company didn't do a good job at adjusting to the stations, and they expected all the stations to adjust to them.
And that's not how it works when you are driving down, not pulling up.
It's counterproductive, I think. And a lot of good people walk away from these jobs, you know, and not just at WSIL, but like at others. Yeah. You know, they walk away because like this philosophy of you're going to do more with less. It's just, I mean, you've seen some of the cuts at Evansville. I mean, that's not good, and not good for sports people either. You know, sports reporters and sports casters in general. You know, a lot of the meat's going into podcasting now, kind of like this. Yeah. You know, and I'm really happy about Darren Kennard, you know, making it after WSIL, because he already had a plan in place, and you know, he did the Section 618 stuff, and you know, a lot of people love Darren Kennard. I mean, I was at Applebee's last night with a group of people from News 3, and you know, we were having dinner, and this one kid who's actually going to be on the SIU men's basketball team next year. I won't tell you who. One, because I forgot his name, but I know, but he apparently is going to be a center or a forward, so he's a big guy. He's a local guy. You'll see him soon. It'll probably be announced. But he was telling us that, like, you know, whenever Darren Kennard left, people were pissed. Yeah. You know, they felt like you know, an identity of Central Illinois was gone. Yeah. And you know, because I remember I was in that carousel of, you know, after Darren there was this person, and then, you know, I was that person, and then we have Jake now, and just, you know, a lot of them did great work. Just people were just not having it though.
Well, and this goes back to, in my mind, right, the quality of the talent. You think of a Mark Kiesling, a Jim Razor, a Darren Kennard, right? And a Danny Valle along the way.
No, God.
But I know, you're like, don't throw me in the same boat as this, but you're in the same boat, because here's what happened, right? Just like all of your predecessors prior, Steve or Bonnie Wheeler walked by and went, your talent, boop, let's go. Because they just knew. Right? And you came in at the tail end of their careers, but again, a Mark Kiesling, a Jim Razor, a Darren Kennard, right? Just boop. Hey, your talent, and that's just what they did, man. They had the eye for it, and it was. I don't know, man. I have a lot of affinity for Steve and Bonnie Swear. I worked at TV3 for a semester in high school.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah. What year was that?
2006.
Oh, way before mine.
You know, and it, and I just, it just something about that, and like you know, that I almost feel like that type of mindset kind of inspires, and I'm just thinking of this now as we're talking, like inspires some of this. That, you know, you gotta put yourself out there. You gotta put it out there for the talent, and just say, like, we're not gonna gatekeep the desk. Yeah. Like, if you're meant to be there, we're gonna get you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and I was lucky that they had that faith in me because I didn't really have that faith in myself. I was just effing around and
Yeah.
being on the desk and just like, oh, just like old times, because I was totally okay being a morning producer and just coming in and wearing jeans and a hoodie because I didn't really have to dress nice. You didn't really, I didn't have to dress nice for that at all. And just kind of learning through that and just knowing that somebody noticed me and gave me a chance. I'm just forever grateful for that.
Yeah.
And that's why it was hard leaving. That's why it's hard leaving WSIL and the region in general because
Yeah.
like WSIL gave me a chance. SIU Carbondale gave me a chance all those years ago when I applied, and I took it and ran.
Yeah.
And hopefully I found the end zone for a touchdown.
I think you did, man. I mean, I have enjoyed getting to see and from a working perspective, right? Getting to see where you've gone because I don't, I'm like everybody else in my generation. I'm not just watching over the air news on a regular basis.
Right.
Like I get to know Danny is another guy that I see out in the field and get to interact with because like we just happen to be close to these stories.
Yeah.
And it's dope, man. Like I'm very happy for you. I think that you will have consistent fanfare from here that will always be like, yeah, Danny was our guy. Danny came up in Southern Illinois. Like, yeah.
I will say though that this is like one of the weirdest exit interviews I've ever done. Probably actually, you know what? The only exit interview that I've ever done, and I'm like introducing myself for the first time, like to people. It's like, yeah, Harry, here I am.
This is actually who I am, not just this pretty face on TV.
I mean, I'm not that pretty. It's the camera. It's 10 pounds.
That's why you get the makeup to shave it off. Oh man, well, dude. So you would have gotten to be at TV3 like they would have still been smoking pipes in engineering when you were there early on, right? Right? Like
we still like we had a very like just they were the wise men,
Yeah.
dude. Like those engineers had years of history. It was Greg Chambers,
Yep.
Pat Victoria, rest his soul.
Pat just passed away in the past year, right?
Yes, he did. Yes, dude, he was one of the nicest guys, and Packer fan.
Yeah.
He liked to talk his shit about the Bears, but no, we would talk about Bears and Packers a lot, and no, he was dude. I remember one of the coolest things that like he would do, and it wasn't anything that he had to do in the engineering room.
Yeah.
Around every Christmas, there would be like a Christmas breakfast that would be held every year. And it would be him and the engineers just cooking, food. It was eggs and chorizo, which, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up eating that shit, and so every Christmas they would cook something. And that year it was huevo con chorizo, eggs with chorizo. And apparently he, was a chef back in the day or whatever. And, he apparently knew how to crack 4 eggs at once and shit. I never seen him do it. I wish I could have, but Dave Davis told me that story too. Now Pat was a good guy. He knew his stuff, and so did the other guys. So did the other guys in that room, and it was a shame to see them go because they were the heart of that station.
Yeah.
They knew every wire, every switch went where, and whenever they went, I mean, the people that came after them just had a tough time, figuring how things work, just because that institution of knowledge was gone. That's what happens when you lose an institution of knowledge.
Well, in engineering, that's the other side that people don't, think about the importance of in media of any kind. That there is such a technical function behind the scenes, right? If everything, if you don't know that anything's happening behind the scene, then everybody is doing their job perfect.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it goes. Like if the aura of no chaos and what you see is like packaged nice and neat with a little bow on it.
Yeah.
Then, that's just how it goes. But if it's not, oh my God,
like if it's chill on screen, it's probably chaos behind the screen,
Right.
more than likely. Because like sometimes, like especially in news, like when you have a show set, and that's the thing I always tell producers is that like don't get comfortable with the show you have, because there's always going to be something that happens. Not always, but like there are going to be times where things happen. 30 minutes before the show or even 10 minutes before the show.
Yep.
I feel like I had a good grasp at that urgency because we would have things happen 10 minutes before the show, and I'm the only person, and I would find it on Facebook or somebody would tell me on Facebook about it, and just get the information, process it, write a script, 25 seconds, whatever. So I tell producers, it's like, don't get comfortable with the show that you stack, because it's probably going to change because a traffic crash on 57 or a chase going on in Marion or something like that. You always got to be prepared. You always got to have a backup plan too. That's the thing that always made me mad the most, is that I had to do extra work to make sure that the work I already did didn't mess up, and if it did, that extra work would come into play. I mean, dude, and I remember I did a whole newscast without any videos or graphics one day. That was actually a few weeks ago. Last month, actually. Yeah, our graphic system, our system went down. It was insane. And it felt like a 1950s newscast, except I wasn't, holding a piece of cardboard showing the picture of the John F. Kennedy, car or whatever, and so I'm doing a 10-minute newscast. And mind you, we are following NBA or NHL, one of the two sports. And so we have a big audience coming in. And so our video system and graphic system down. And so it's literally just going to have to be me for however long it takes to get to the next break. And so I'm talking on screen for 10 minutes. I'm going through the top stories, and I'm reading through the package. And I'm trying to not to go word for word and just trying to tell a story, because I open it up I open it up something please excuse our technical difficulties because we have lost the power to play video and graphics, but we haven't lost the ability to tell a story. So here we go, and so I just kind of settled in, and I did the thing, and our forecaster and our sports guy Jake, they did a good job trusting me and making sure that we went smooth on it, and it ended up being smooth, because I had to incorporate them in. There was the last segment of the show. It was a sports block, but we also had a health segment that I wanted to drag in. I had killed it to time, but I had to make up some time, so I brought it back in. And so we started the sports block with all three of us on screen. I'm saying, all right, well, we're going to get to sports in a minute. And, I know Jake is excited here, but we got a little health thing to talk about. And so I'm talking about the health thing, and, and guys, watch out for these symptoms, okay? And so, just kind of making it like a podcast of sorts, Excuse me. And so we made it work, and it was not that stressful, to be honest with you. It wasn't very stressful at all, because all I had to do was just read what was on the screen, even if there was no video. Yeah. And then a few weeks later, this woman came up to me and was like, "Oh, I really liked how you did the newscast." And I was like when with no video, you did a great job. And I was like, "Well, thank you so much." That was at the Eclipse, I think. I didn't, I didn't expect anyone to tell me anything about it. Or anything. It was just one of the most weirdest things, but it's just one of those things where you just have to keep your composure because you're on the air.
Well, and it's funny, right? At the end of all this, you go, man, I'm on my way out the door here. Wherever you may have been at that time, you may not have already been on your way out the door. I don't know, and you go, okay, well, I'm where I'm at here, and well, yeah, because you would have known your contract would have been nearing its end. And what's next? What's next?
Yeah.
And somebody gives you that big accolade, and you're like, dang, this is what I'm going to miss. Seriously.
I mean, I've had a lot of people over the years, tell me good job. And I don't know how many actually mean it. Maybe they're just saying it because, hey, I seen him on TV. I'm just going to go say hello. And, a lot of people, there have been a few people that, talk to me for a few minutes and they'll tell me what they like. We like how you deliver and stuff like that. And so I'm very appreciative of all the comments I've gotten over the years. And a lot of the notes too. I've had people say, kind of reach out with some notes about stuff, and some of them have made good points. Yeah. Others no, but
they all got opinions.
But they all do. Well, hey, and you know what? I'll look into it, and that's as best as I can do is I'll look into it, and there's no story that can be untold. I don't think. I don't know if that made sense.
I mean, you don't know what you need to know about yourself on the other side of the screen until the people that are on the other side of that screen consuming what you're producing tell you what their feelings and opinions are about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you've got to, especially in this business, you got to know how to please the crowd.
Yeah. And And I think the thing with reporting is that, like, many times we get that view of kind of parachuting in and just coming in for the details and leaving. Uh, Especially like with hard stories like fires and stuff like that, and it could be hard to approach somebody after that because most times a fire, it's the worst day of their lives. That's what I always say.
Yeah.
And so in a situation like that, it can be tough to do a story like on the turn like that. But we kind of have to just suck it up and do it. Nothing to but do it. And there's been a lot of times where I just had to go up to a crying family and ask them. I hate asking how they're doing, especially after a fire, because clearly, I think for me it's like before I go in there, I like to tell myself, read the room, give myself a couple of minutes to observe and kind of take in what's going on instead of just going right to the source, because you don't want to make this more traumatic for the people that are affected by this. You kind of want to be a fly on the wall, as least, seen as possible, because it's going to make the news, especially if there's a lot of fire trucks going there, and whether the family likes it or not. It's part of the nature of this, and I think one of the things that I don't want to be is an ambulance chaser, because too many times we kind of forget that whole bleeds leads thing. Like, that's such a thing of the past. I think we need to really focus on the humanity in stories and not just ways to piss the other side off, because I think that's where we're at right now, is that we're in the outrage media era, where we just say these outrageous takes, or we present these viewpoints, and they get people to react to nothing else.
I think that it will take some generational shifts to happen. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, of course.
But
Yeah.
that we will spit ourselves out of the other end of this cycle and go, you know what? Maybe not all this has to be about what makes us all the most angry and the most willing to click something and the most whatever it may be. Gosh, a lot to chew on, man.
115 podcasts, huh?
And technically, yeah. This was this was it. Episode 115 of the WTF Carbondale podcast. Danny Valle's exit interview.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Nathan. I really appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, man. It was an absolute pleasure. Have a good one, folks. Whatever that one
Peace.
may be.